Andrew, it's a pleasure to speak with you. How are you today?
I'm doing very well and great to speak with you guys again too.
Excellent, excellent. And I think you remember my friend and colleague, David Rowe. He'll be joining me on this interview.
Yep.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, David.
And for the people that don't know you very well, could you give a little bit of your background about ABM and marketing and so forth?
Yes. So my name is Andrew Mahr. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Triblio, an account-based marketing platform. We are part of IDG, International Data Group. We became part of that company in June of 2020. Yeah, have been in the process of bringing together all of their data and services with our Triblio ABM platform. And it's been exciting and very busy last 8 months.
That's fascinating. And both David and I have quite a history with IDG over the years. So, what was some of the magic behind or the logic behind the merger or acquisition?
Yeah, sure. So if you've been watching the account-based marketing space for the last couple of years, you might have noticed that there's two, I think, parallel tracks of innovation that have been happening. One is on what I would call the marketing execution track. So this is what channels can you reach? How coordinated can those be? How accurate can you be in those channels? The other channel has been account-based data. How well can you measure? How well can you get and be granular with who you're reaching? And now post GDPR, can you do that in a GDPR compliant way, CCPA compliant way? And are you still able to get all the metrics and insights you need to understand what's happening in those accounts? So Triblio, we've been developing in both, but probably majoring in the execution side, whereas IDG has been, as a media publisher and a data aggregator, they've been putting together great account-based data for decades now. So we're able to now have a solution at that intersection of media, data, and technology. So that was really the logic and the magic, as you said, that's probably a better word, behind bringing the two companies together, is to be able to have, kind of best of breed on both of those things at once. Global data, GDPR compliant, that allows for great targeting and intent, and then, the execution capabilities also.
Excellent. So the data helps the targeting be more specific and more relevant, and and then the execution therein. So it's a nice combination.
Yeah, the targeting as well as on the intent side. So, a big category, again, parallel to ABM has been intent data. How well can you measure and understand what accounts are doing in kind of pre-funnel stages where they're doing research, they're looking at competitors, they're evaluating solutions, they're just poking around at problems they have, but not yet raising a hand to talk to you as a vendor, a solution provider. Intent data measures that. The ability to get that intent data is all based on your sources, and IDG's data is proprietary. It's, and they're operating in 150 markets. So it's international and it's got great volume. So not just on targeting, but also even understanding what the market is doing, what we're able to tap into them with them is really unparalleled.
And are you getting other data as well and triangulating or whatever with IDG data?
Yeah, as a platform, we're very open to working with other data sources too. So we have, enterprise customers who will bring in their own data sources that are custom to them. But then other partnerships, we'll always keep our door open to those as well. So we've worked really well with Bombora, and I think that there's a lot of other great options too, just to make sure that you have the right data for different markets, because very often, one vendor might have a specialty in a certain vertical or geography, and so to serve customers broadly, you need to be able to aggregate all of those.
That makes sense. And IDG is very specifically technology sector. So that's where you're strongest, I assume, with the data.
Yeah, certainly. Their data really strong in IT decision makers, in line of business decision makers, and then spread out really evenly across the globe. So down to the individuals who are doing that research or leading those projects, they're able to see into that really well.
Okay. And are you good for other B2B sectors?
Yes, absolutely. So pre-IDG, we were serving, companies that are, servicing healthcare solutions, that are servicing financial sector and so on. So it's not just IT companies, certainly, but from a data standpoint, we certainly have a lot of strength there now, and we'll be able to specialize certain services around those as we continue to scale.
And are you by definition B2B as opposed to B2C?
Yes, so account-based marketing is B2B. It's treating every account essentially as a market of one. So being able to deliver personalized messages that drive that buying group forward in the process. So it's definitely a B2B strategy and where we're focused as a company.
Okay. And David and I had the pleasure to speak with John Miller recently. And so, and he talked about the merger between Demandbase and Engagio. So how do you stack up against that? I assume they're a big competitor of yours.
Yeah, we see Demandbase and formerly Engagio out there a lot. And so, they do a lot, certainly in the advertising space. So we see them there. I think the race is on to build a platform that can service everything from, advertising and insights and intent data at the very top of the funnel, all the way down to how well you're orchestrating sales motions and closing activities with data and marketing tactics at the bottom. We like where we're at. We like the data that we're working with, the technology we're working with, but the competition's good for us too.
Makes everybody stronger. So, you mentioned that they're strong in advertising. So what else are you talking about for demand gen or lead gen? What other aspects is there for the ABM execution?
Yeah, so in account-based marketing, I would think about it in a few kind of distinct funnel stages where the first one, let's say that accounts you're trying to reach are showing some intent. You just need to be able to monitor that and begin to run those very top of funnel tactics. Advertising is a good one. Just begin to nurture them. Make sure you're creating brand awareness and getting your name into the mix early in that project cycle. Then as the process continues in an account that's in a buying journey, we'll want to begin executing other tactics to reach them more aggressively. So our platform is able to deliver up personalized website messaging. So, if a healthcare company versus a finance company comes to your homepage, making sure they're brought down the right, buying path, but also triggering other things. So triggering an email campaign in your Marketo instance, or triggering a gifting campaign if you're tied into one of those direct mail vendors. So all those different channels, that are appropriate to different funnel stages are going to be important for ABM. And as a platform, what we're trying to do is not replicate all those channels, but be the orchestration engine that defines the buyer's journey from top to bottom. So we do, own the advertising channel. But if after that first, touch, or if you see the intent data increasing, you want to trigger an email campaign, direct mail, send an event invite, or have sales reach out right away with a specific message, we're able to orchestrate, sequence, and create rules around those things as well. So all those channels that have been relevant in B2B, I think will continue to have a place. And what we're seeking to be, again, is the orchestration engine that keeps them all moving in the way you'd expect. David, you had your hand up, I saw.
Has the IDG sales team been sort of pitching your services in conjunction with their existing programs? And if so, are there any examples of some IDG advertisers who have taken advantage of that combination?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a big part of our activity at the very outset, was to make sure that the whole organization was excited and able to capitalize on the advantages this brought, not just IDG data coming into Triblio, but Triblio solutions getting pushed into that sales team. So from an advertising perspective, but also from some of our sales engagement tools, those things have begun to be packaged up with other IDG programs. So when someone is buying, let's say like a lead gen program from IDG now, they're also able to buy in conjunction with that ads to reach those specific people, sales engagement, data and tools to help convert those people into pipeline. So it's really exciting. These leads that come through now have more value wrapped around them, more data wrapped around them from us. And so when they're getting handed off and worked, we're hoping to be able to deliver more value from those.
And would the IDG salesperson be able to act as a single point of contact, or would there be also then a Triblio salesperson that would get involved?
Yeah, so it depends on the way that the customer wants to engage with the services. If they want to buy, just some Triblio solutions that are kind of wrapped into a lead gen program or an online event program they're able to do that, and they'll just keep working with their IDG rep as they engage that way. But if they want to explore like a SaaS subscription, they're going to have to bring in a specialist who can do all the technical vetting and integration planning, and those more long-term kind of roadmap-oriented conversations that our specialists are able to execute.
I was intrigued. I saw your video you did about the FIRE approach you guys have. I wondered if you could explain that a little bit and what's involved there.
Yeah, so FIRE is an acronym that's picked up in account-based marketing for selecting and prioritizing accounts. And so it's an acronym, as you'd expect. So the F stands for fit. Is this company of a firmographic profile, industry, size, geography that we know we can service well? The I is for intent. Are they actually showing interest right now? And then R is for recency and E for engagement. So is this account across all four of those showing signals that would indicate we should be taking action on this account? So you can think of kind of that F as more or less defining, well, what's the total market? Who's everyone that's a fit? And then the more intent, recency, and engagement you can measure and layer on, then the more and more priority and resources you're going to dedicate to that account. So we use that acronym, and when working with customers, let's say that you've got a global sales team of 100 sales reps, and you want to make sure that all of them on a weekly basis are going to be working the 5 or 15 best accounts in their territory, and they're showing the most intent, even if it's not somebody who's in your funnel already. Well, FIRE is a way that we can kind of pull together a quick definition of what that is for the business, and then be pushing those accounts out to the reps, and they know why this account now and why the associated leads are showing up in their funnel to work. It's because they've already been pre-qualified from a fit perspective, and we're seeing that, okay, there's intent data that says they're in a purchase cycle, they're looking at a competitor, they might be directly engaged, maybe there's, they've attended a webinar, there's anonymous visits to the homepage. So all those four things together give us confidence to send, sales reps and more dedicated marketing programs after those accounts.
And I think you also made the point that was interesting that a lot of companies start with a relatively small list of prospects, like maybe they have 100 prospects or something, and they can manage that in an Excel spreadsheet pretty easily.
Yeah.
But then when they want to scale that up into the thousands or tens of thousands of companies, that's where, a solution like yours kind of comes into play.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to have, you have to be able to have, data and then rules that you can execute. If it is going to be, thousands or tens of thousands of accounts that you have to prioritize, and you want to be, the first one in the door with those. It just takes a lot of processing and a lot of understanding of, what does the sales rep need ultimately to close the deal. And what we saw in the early days of collecting all this account-based data is that the reps don't need a spreadsheet full of information that says, well, here's every engagement point and here's every every little movement that the account made. They need to know which ones to focus on. And so that's that prioritization mechanism. Is it fit and is it intent? And then what should I say when I reach out? Should I reach out to them about, this service, this product? Where are they stuck in the buying process? What's their specific challenge? And the engagement data allows us to deliver that to them as well. So if a rep at the end of the day knows that these are the 10 accounts that are most likely to buy in the next 30 or 60 days, and here's a message I can send to each one, then they're going to be off to the races and able to work really well. So that really lifts sales productivity, because there's going to be an improved conversion rate from focusing on the right accounts, and also from sending out the right message to those accounts. We have to remember that in really large teams, there's a huge productivity lift just from automating this account selection process. And in a lot of organizations, a BDR team might show up on Monday mornings and spend that whole first day, or a good part of it, just putting their list together, scrubbing it, taking it to sales ops, having it deduped with pipeline or customers, or, oh, that's a blacklist, don't touch that. So all those processes are manual. So you've got 100 people spending a fifth of their week just on data cleanup. We can put a whole day back in the week of an organization and really see productivity gains from that too.
Another comment you made that I thought was interesting is that when you started Triblio, you didn't consider yourself an expert on ABM. And really, over the course of the last 5 years or so, you've learned that from working with different marketers and their experiences. I'm wondering if you can just maybe embellish on that a bit.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I want to make sure listeners know too that I'm not Triblio's founder, but I was employee. I was full-time badge number 10, so I got in the door pretty early. But yeah, our approach always was to be customer centric, and that meant that we were going to be driven forward in the use cases we're developing, in the tools that we were developing, by the needs that they had, by the problems they were solving, and how can we just go after making those customers successful and trusting that success was going to build on itself if we were able to execute on that vision. So what that meant is that everyone, not just me as the customer success lead, but our CTO and salespeople became deeply embedded in what was actually happening in our customers' businesses, understanding, well, what are the problems? And when they try to use this new tool, what happens and what are the knock-on effects through the whole organization as different people start using these data points and these activation tools. So we became, I think, experts in it through really trying to get into and augment our customers' teams, just be part of their business. And, we benefited immensely because we learned use cases. We learned what works and what doesn't, best practices, because we're just sitting at the switchboard of a lot of ABM programs, understanding what's working, what's not. So yeah, 5 years in, I think that certainly the customer success team, but really the organization. I mean, you can talk to our developers and they understand the workflows that customers are trying to execute really, really well. It's not just a line of code, but they know that, okay, well, there's, this guy, Sam is going to be using this tool, next Friday to try to execute these things. And they think about that business application. And it makes all the difference in how we go about, building the product, developing roadmap, and learning, and then projecting ideas out into the market. So we have this tool, or this roadshow back in the day of live events that we would do called the ABM tour, and that was just us sharing customer stories, and not a single original thought in the whole thing really for me, but just things I'd learned from others, and that's been a really great and fun way to build a business.
When you look out there at all the companies doing ABM now, are there any that stand out to you in terms of companies that are really using ABM in an exceptional way or in an innovative way, particularly?
Yeah, I mean, the examples run the gamut, and certainly the ones I'm most familiar with are our customers. So we recently released a case study with a customer in Insperity, who's working on that problem I talked about. How do we get a really large sales organization to be using fit data, intent data, engagement data to execute the right sales plays to the right accounts on an ongoing basis, and have that tied in with advertising, with direct mail programs, and content development, and all those types of things. So organizations like that are really pushing themselves to be better, they're great partners to work with because they're going to bring their A game to every status check-in, and they're going to expect us to be bringing our A game to every status check-in. And we have really aggressive goals we set with them. We can speak to them about things we're seeing that we think they could optimize because they're not getting the most out of the tool, and they can be really good partners for us, helping to see, well, what are ways that we could improve efficiency of something or workflow. So I think that when I think of customers who are approaching ABM right and doing really well, the profile that appears to me is the customer who has really engaged their vendors as partners and isn't trying just to build out a little team of experts who just buys tools and then just uses them internally, but someone who knows how to bring in the expertise that's out there, through vendors and partners, and really, pull everyone's insights. Because right now, this is still a young strategy in the sense of, the ABM 2.0, not the 20-year-old version from ITSMA, but what's really been happening in the market the last 5 years. Best practices are still emerging. How to get really large sales teams engaged with this is still emerging. How this interfaces with, the current demand gen, funnel of leads to MQLs to SQLs, that's still emerging. So if you're not pulling from all the smartest people that you can pull into the room, you're just not going to do as well. And Insperity is a great example of somebody who's really been had their foot on the gas with doing that.
I love good case studies. Do you have some case studies published on your website? Because maybe we can add some links.
Yeah, we do. So there's a client stories section on the website. So yeah, we could just add that to the.
And I wouldn't mind doing an interview with one of your clients too. I always like hearing from them. Let them say how wonderful you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Really fun. What's going on in your world as far as everybody working from home now? The IP addresses aren't very useful anymore, I assume.
Well, they changed. It's funny because in the early days of building out our platform, we ran into a problem where somebody said, "Hey, we were running a campaign with you. You identified this account as being this company, but then we saw it show up. The same device showed up later, and you're saying it was a hotel chain. Which is it?" So we would look into these device histories and we say, oh, of course, like people are not at a desk, like we're at a desk right now. They're out there, right? And so this one employee, this one individual that we've been targeting in this campaign, we tracked that device. And yeah, they'd been working at a company, but I think it was a sales rep, then had been at a conference and then was at a client site, then was at another client site, and then went back to the office. So IP addresses were never this static data point that you could just always know exactly what something was just by the IP address. So back then we had to develop tools that built confidence scores that said, okay, yeah, this device right now is at Logan Airport, but 45 or let's say 80% of the time that we see this device, it's at Boston Consulting Group headquarters. So we're going to say that's the device, even if we see it show up at McDonald's tomorrow. So it's the systems have to be smarter than IP addresses. And what happened when everyone started working from home was a lot of those confidence engines got a flood of new data to work with. And that did take a couple of weeks to work out. Where it's like, okay, well, now we're seeing this person usually from this address instead. We have two people who apparently work for different companies and they're at home sharing the same IP address. So all those things had to get worked through. We have to adjust the confidence models. We have to adjust, which data points we're giving the most weight to. But IP addresses actually, again, are very useful for our system, but only because we had that system in place from years before of building those confidence models on the fly. And we're kind of ready for the wave before it hit. But yeah, there was a huge surge of new IP data to be processing and scores to be recalculating for a good 6 weeks there.
Yeah. And what about cookies? Google's going to be getting rid of those at some point. I guess there's a threat, but
yeah, everyone had, the cookie apocalypse is on the horizon of the third-party cookies going away. So there's a lot of strategies that are being worked on for this for different partners. And different just other vendors that we talk to who are in the ad space and need to be able to advertise. So clearly, being able to use the IP address data that we just talked about is going to be really important. The fact that we can know what account somebody is from, and then use other things to triangulate to who that might be and are they the right person to show an ad to. The IP data is a foundation for that, and so we're really happy that we have really great tech in place for that. But there's going to need to be other technologies too. I think the ad exchanges where publishers are sharing data sets as part of an opt-in system is probably going to be on the rise. But I think a lot's still coming too. Google, at the same time as they're blocking these cookies, they make a lot of money every year selling ads against those cookies. So I think that they're working hard on new solutions too that allow advertisers to still reach their goals. So I think it's going to be something that's positive for the market in the long run. I think what we're going to get from the Googles of the world, from the big DSPs, is going to be higher quality data to work with, and there's going to be a transition period where people are figuring things out. And where we're trying out different strategies like we always are. But I think in the end, we're going to be in a better place with privacy, and we're going to be in a better place with brand confidence with the ads you're serving. So probably a good change on the whole that's coming our way. And from a selfish standpoint, at IDG, because we own these properties and can sell placements there directly, we are a first party publisher with a huge international audience. So it just increases the value of what we're able to do for that IT market too.
that's a good point. And then speaking of privacy, so how does GDPR, Castle, CCPA, how does that affect you?
Well, it affects, certainly account-based marketers differently. Any company that was operating in Europe and was, taking these things seriously, their databases were decimated in 2018 because they, all of a sudden you need to have an opt-in permission on everybody that you're going to contact, and now you're not able to do that anymore. or you have to remove those people from your database where you don't have the opt-in information. So it has made, a few things more valuable. It's made, the account-based kind of like IP targeting and these advertisings more valuable because, you can just go into a system like Triblio and say, I want to reach people who are IT or, finance, directors and above, and you don't have to have their data first. You can just reach them and then hopefully they'll inbound and convert to you. At the same time, it makes it more challenging then for sales teams sometimes to follow up because they, internationally can't just go to a contact vendor and buy a bunch of names because if those things haven't been opted in for you. Fortunately, from an IDG Triblio standpoint, because they've been in the kind of opt-in lead gen program space for so long. For us, it means that we can actually just deliver something now that is even more consequential and important, which is names that are opted in. So when people engage with those programs that David was asking about earlier, someone buys some leads from IDG and then some other follow-on solutions from Triblio. Part of that process is that we're opting in those leads. So you can take them, put them in your CRM and not be facing a GDPR action after the fact. So I think that ultimately the regulation is making privacy better. It's making people or companies who have proprietary GDPR compliant data more valuable. And so we're planning to lean into that. We think we have something really great to offer in terms of opted in data, and that's a strength for the next couple of years for us.
Okay, good. I have one final question, unless David has more, but what does your crystal ball say about what next year and 5 years from now? What is ABM going to look like? What are people going to be talking about?
Sure. I do spend time thinking about this, especially this time of year. One of the things that I think is going to be most important is that right now in the ABM space, a lot of what you have from a data standpoint is just that, it's data. And at the end of the day, no one buys data for its own sake. So the way I think of the transition that's going to be happening is that we're going to be moving from companies selling account-based data or intent data to selling, discovery and insights later on top of that. It's interesting, if you look at buyer profiles or buyer surveys of companies and individuals who purchase intent data, the number one problem they report having in most cases is operationalizing it. Okay, I have the data now. How do I use it? And this is always the problem when you buy big sets of data is, am I getting the right value out of it? Am I seeing the right things? So I think that the way that data is going to be serviced and sold in the future is going to be more about insight and discovery engines and things where the computer's figuring out what to tell you instead of you buying a huge spreadsheet of information and figuring out what to do with it or hiring someone to figure out what to do with it. So moving from data to discovery and insights is certainly one trend. I think that the positions of privacy first companies and strategies is going to continue to be a point of strength. And anyone who hasn't been taking GDPR seriously or is hanging on to the last bits of kind of pre-privacy restriction selling is going to be at a disadvantage. So that's certainly a movement that's happening. And then we're going to have to figure out these new advertising strategies post-cookie, like you said. So those are three big things I'm looking at and that we have a focus on executing well. Probably, we can watch this in a year and see how good that was. But minimally, those three things are going to continue to be important.
Thank you. David, anything else?
I guess my only final question would be looking down the road again, do you see IDG ultimately just becoming a data company versus a publisher?
Well, the publishing is where the data comes from. And so I think that, a move like that would mean that we'd figured out, that there's a better, more valuable, more efficient way to get the data that marketers need and to reach those audiences. The way that we view it is not just that, well, the publishing is a means to an end. I mean, that's not IDG. The publishing arm of the business wouldn't be successful in getting data if that's how they viewed it. They're there to help buyers make great decisions. And so the media, the editorial arm are laser focused on that. And so I don't think that publishing is going away. It's a really important part of the mission of, if you're thinking about how we're helping sellers on the data side, but we're helping buyers on the other side of serving up good information. IDC obviously is being part of that in the analyst firm. So I think serving that entire kind of like purchasing process is going to remain important. Publishing is going to change in some ways, and that's a different, that's not my job to figure that out. But not just a move just to strictly data. I think the other parts of the mission are too important.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Andrew,
Yeah,
it's a pleasure.
absolutely. Great to speak to you both.
Excellent. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.